There we are. Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. Hi, Libby. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm really well, and I'm excited to share this conversation with you. For people who are listening, this is an episode of The Unconditioned Life, which is really about releasing the conditioning in our thoughts and our behaviors and our patterns, things from our childhood that are blocking us from having the life that we want, the health that we want, the relationships that we want. So, this is an episode of the Unconditioned Life podcast, and it's also streaming in multiple places on social media. So, we would love it if you say hello. We can't see all those places at once, but we'll make sure we go back and check. And if you're just catching up and you're new to us, just coming across this somewhere, my name is Linda Downey, and I'm a functional health practitioner, a transformational health and spiritual coach. I've worked with women in health and fitness for over 40 years and really focus right now on women who are in stress and overwhelm, have difficult things in their past. So that's who I am. And Libby is my colleague, and we really are passionate about helping people change their lives. So I'll let Libby introduce herself to you, and then we'll get started.
Yes, so I am a mom of four, homeschool for 25 years now, a wife, and a businesswoman who focuses largely on helping physicians and other practitioners who want to move into a functional medicine model from traditional medicine. I have my own very long health journey I went through, and that's what led me to that. So I also work with people with chronic health conditions who are trying to change and improve their life. I'm a certified rapid relief technique practitioner as well. And yeah, I feel like I have a doctorate from the School of Hard Knocks around the topic we are discussing today. So don't have a plaque on the wall, but maybe I should make one.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. You know what, and probably anybody listening would feel like they could say that, right? Because life just is not easy. It's not easy, and it occurs like it's the not easy circumstances of life out there that are the problem. I think it often occurs that way. But what we want to talk about is there's actually a lot you can do in here about how you manage yourself through those life circumstances. And that can make all the difference. And when I was listening to you giving a little bit of background on yourself, I thought homeschooling 4 kids, right? You said for 25 years and running a business and having health issues. So I would think that you know a little bit about stress and overwhelm and how you can possibly go through that terribly, and you can also go through it powerfully, right? So how did that happen? And for people who don't know my personal, I gave you some of my credentials, but my personal background is also a lot of extensive health issues for autoimmune conditions. Um, and I put myself through undergrad and graduate school. I have a master's degree, and then was really passionate about health and wellness. Felt like I wanted to really help people be their best, and my health kept getting worse and worse and worse. And then I was blessed to have 2 children, and my daughter was born with a congenital heart defect, and she spent most of her 15 years of life in the hospital. So I was also running a business, also raising one other child. And although my ex-husband has other kids from his previous marriage, so we had other kids in the home, and it was living a lot at the hospital and trying to be an advocate and support my daughter. And she passed away 5 years ago, but I learned a lot through that process. So both Libby and I have a lot of our own personal circumstances that we bring to this conversation, along with those circumstances. I don't know about you, but I think that's what motivated us to go and get the credentials and do the work that we're doing, was those personal circumstances, right? So we have both of that perspective, living it and then how to help people through it.
Yes, Linda, give me 1 second. My computer's doing something weird. I'm freezing, so give me 1 second. I'll be right back. I'm going to
Okay.
try to unfreeze it.
Okay.
Keep talking. I'll be right back.
Okay, we don't see you freezing, but okay. So Sergio's saying hi. That's my friend Sergio in Mexico, who is such a great supporter of my work and the page that we do. So thanks, Sergio, for saying hello. And what the topic, if you saw this event when we created it, what we wanted to really talk about was that inner critic voice that we all have in our head. You know, that voice that never ever shuts off, that voice that's constantly talking to you. And most of the time, it's not a good voice. It's not positive. Most of the time, it's a very negative conversation in our heads. I don't really know why that is, why we're sort of wired that way, but we're very critical of ourselves. And Libby's back. What do you think? How does it look?
It's not freezing anymore, so thank you. I just had to take care of a
Okay.
second real quick.
Yeah. No worries. I've had that too. So yeah, I was just talking to folks who are listening, and we have some people who have joined us, and Sergio has said hello. And please say hello. And also, if you watch the replay later, we're trying different times out to see really what's the best for people to catch this, if they can catch it live. But if you watch it, the replay later, say hello and where you're from. But I was letting the people know that what we really wanted to talk about was that conversation in our head that never shuts off and is rarely, rarely positive.
Yes. And I think here's something really interesting. I think it can be situational, because what I found was, when I was dealing with my health things, I found that I would be coaching myself and I would be encouraging myself and going, okay, you did this. I'm so proud of you. Good job. But in other circumstances, I wasn't that kind to myself. And I think a lot of times it's maybe how we're trained or how we're wired naturally. But I think, I was thinking the other day about just like we have a mutual mentor, Linda, and one day I was in with Jesse and talking, and I was just really being really hard on myself, about something that really wasn't that big of a deal, so to speak. And I remember she just looked at me and said, "Who says?" And I was like, "Whoa, hold on." Because I remember, I think the circumstance was like I was like dealing with a really sick kid, and I was passing a kidney stone, and I was still trying to like power through these business things I thought I should do in the day. And I remembered her just saying, like, who says you need to do that? Like, you're passing a kidney stone and you're taking care of a really sick kid. Like, can that just be enough for today? And what I realized was like the who says was me. I was setting this expectation.
Right.
But I think a lot of times too, it comes back, at least for me, it came back to performance-based love. And it wasn't just performance-based love from others, it was performance-based love for myself.
Yes.
Constantly needing to prove that I was worthy enough, that I was powerful, that I could do it. And a lot of times it's like hardwired into us. And, when we talk about things in childhood, it's never to like cast stones at our parents or say they didn't do a good enough job, or teachers or whatever. They all did the best they could with what they had. And as I mentioned last week when we were talking, I have 4 adult children now, and I know I didn't do it perfectly. I know that I made mistakes. And I also know that they interpreted things and circumstances a lot differently than I did as I was going through them as an adult. So your parents, I remember my husband one time coached a patient through, he's a physician. He coached a patient through this major trauma she had had in her life. And he's trying to like dig, because he was trying to get to the root cause. He's a functional medicine doctor. He's like, I don't know. We can't do anything more physically here. There is something else going on. And it finally came back to her. As a 5-year-old, there was a really bad snowstorm, and she had been left at a babysitter's house overnight because the parents literally could not get to the babysitter. And the abandonment issues she had from that all growing up, and when they really dug in and looked at it and kind of got down to that business, the realization was, as a child, she felt abandoned, but in reality, she was safe. Everything was
Mm,
okay. But the way she interpreted it was, I need to be afraid of being abandoned. And so we get all these, and I only say that because oftentimes we'll get these scripts that have happened that start in our heads that we don't even know where they came from, because her parents never abandoned her. She, there was no horrific abuse that happened in that situation, but it started a tape that was playing in her head that became this critic inside of her. Like, you better do it perfectly. If you don't do it perfectly, people are going to leave you, because people always leave you. And when we get
yeah.
this tape going in our heads, that's when, it's like, just sometimes we let it play without any kind of a filter or making any kind of conscious decision that that's what we're going to let go, be the background music of our lives. And that's really what I thought would be interesting to talk about today. A lot of times it's just so automatic, we don't even recognize that this is going on.
Yeah, it's a really great point, and it makes me want to share a story. When I was going through my training with the work that I do now, one of the people that I was learning from, her name was Sophie. She was talking about how, I think she was the oldest of three children, but yeah, she was the oldest. And one day at 6 years old, her mother's like kissing her face, going, "I love you so much. You're my darling little girl. I love you so much." And then she says, "I don't know why I thought I wanted a boy. You're so delicious." So all of the kisses, all of the "I love you so much" went out the window. And what she heard was, I had wanted a boy.
Yeah.
And what she did from that point on was she became Superwoman. She learned how to skydive. Like, she put herself in very rigorous, even unsafe, and what you might think of as more masculine, but she became like Superwoman. And that was one part of it. But when we're talking about stress and overwhelm, which is what we said we wanted to talk about, like the way that we add to our own stress and overwhelm because of that background music is the term you used, and I thought that was great. It's like that always playing in the background, like elevator music, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we all have that. And if you're listening to this today or when you watch the replay, start to think, what's my background music? Even if you can't get to the root of it, sometimes that takes a little more digging. But what is your background music? Is it, I need to be Superwoman? Is it, I need to do everything so that I don't feel abandoned? What is the thing?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I think, just to stack on that, the fact is that we all have background music playing. And, there does come a point where we can quiet our minds and kind of train ourselves to do that. But I guarantee there's a tape that you have going on. And it's probably so, I mean, like anyone who's had toddlers, you learn to like tune out the banging and the yelling and the, like, what the really scary noises are you need to hear, or the silence you also need to go running toward, because they've done something they shouldn't. But there's all these noises that you just kind of block out and don't even recognize are there anymore, right? Because you would go crazy if your conscious mind was thinking about that all the time. Well, in the same
Right.
way, we have this background music going on in our heads, and it impacts everything in our lives. My daughter's an actress, and when she was able to really understand what the background music was for her, what she realized was she was blocking a lot of the emotion that she really needed to be a good actress. So sometimes it's not always that we feel a lot of things. Sometimes it's that we block or deflect a lot of things. And
Mm,
and then, okay, so how does that create stress in your life? Well, going back to the toddler thing, like, your kid may be banging on pots and pans, and you may be able to take it for half an hour. But there comes a point where, like, maybe you have to get on a phone call or really concentrate on something or whatever. And all of a sudden that background noise kind of pushes you to this stress or overwhelm that normally you could have kind of handled. But what it does is it just ratchets everything up. So the same, I would think, is true with this. If we're having this inner critic giving their opinion constantly of us, oh, you should have done that better. Oh, why can't you be like so and so? Oh, that was good, but you should have done more. Whatever it is that's going on in your head, maybe you can cope with it and handle it to a period. Then something more happens and suddenly it's too much. And you don't even understand how you got from I was fine to too much. It's because it's like a baseline stress that's invisible often, and we don't even realize it's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great analogy. Anybody who's been around little kids, I'm sure, can get that. And then, there's also the things that we say when we think of the specific arenas of our life. So you have, this is how I look at it, different arenas, like your work arena, the people, how you show up at work when you walk into your job. You have your relationship arena, like your primary, let's say, partner relationship, if you're in one. Then there's also the other relationships, like maybe your siblings or your parents or extended family, friends. There's also the arena of your health and how your physical body functions and how you manage all of that. And in each of those arenas, you might have, some more empowering conversations. I'm just going to make this up, but let's say in the work arena, like when you go into work, like Sophie that I was mentioning before, she was Superwoman. So when she showed up for anything, she knew she was bringing her A game and people were going to see results because she had created herself to be that way. But then let's just say in your health arena, you look in the mirror and you go, oh, God, look at this. I'm so fat, or oh, nothing looks good on me. Or, whatever every time you pass a mirror or a window, and then you maybe start to avoid going to social situations because you don't feel good about yourself. Or in your relationship arena, they never listen to me. I'm not important. So it's not necessarily always the same in each compartment of your life. And it's an interesting concept to think about, because why does it show up in one area maybe and not another? If that's the case, I'm saying that's one possible and oftentimes existing
Yeah, I mean,
scenario.
I even like to think about it like different playlists. Like I actually have different playlists for different moods and different things I'm trying to accomplish. So I have a workout playlist, I have a romance playlist, I have okay, I have to think, I can't have it, like on my thinking one when I'm doing really deep work with my business, I don't want any lyrics because they distract me, but I do like certain kinds of music to listen to. So, maybe be aware of the different playlists that are going on within your different spheres. I love the way Linda laid that out, because oftentimes it will be completely different.
Yeah. And if you have, like, let's say in your personal life around your health, your body, and or your relationships, it's more negative, it may be that you show up really strongly at work and you're somebody who gets stuff done and makes it happen, and you know yourself that way, and then you don't know how to be with yourself in the relationship. You don't know how to bring something else other than, you know, making it happen. And then that affects how your partner is, or, with you, because like they don't want to be told what to do like you do at work. You don't leave it at the door, you bring it into work, and that's affecting how you are. I also want to make sure that we mention, and we try to keep these conversations to 20 to 30 minutes because we know you all are busy and we love that you come and listen to us. But I want to make sure that when we talk about health, that your cells, your biology of your cells actually listens to the thoughts that you have in your head. Right, Libby?
Absolutely. It's all interconnected. We live in a very like Western, most of us, philosophy, which is everything belongs in its box. So your health isn't related to your mindset, isn't related to your relationship, isn't related to spirituality. They're all separate little containers. But I hate to break it to you, but that is not the way we are actually wired. We're wired to have all those things integrated. And so it's actually more insane to think that we could box all that up. And that's the
Yes.
harder thing to believe because, look, if I promise you, if you're feeling stress emotionally, it's going to show up in your body somewhere. I Promise you.
Yes.
It's going to show up in your relationships. It's going to show up in every corner of your life.
Yes. Yeah, I really wanted to make sure because both of us have a strong health background and both of us struggled with our health and the way that we overcame that. You're looking at two women between the two of us, significant autoimmune diagnoses, fatigue, life was not working, spending a lot of time in bed. Libby, I think even more so than me. We both had Lyme, but yours was, I think, much more significant. So when you look at us now, I don't think you see that. But everything that we're talking about is because we had to figure that out and find how to go through it. And your biology, your physical biology, your cells, I kind of picture them as almost like little Pac-Man. And when thoughts are going through your head, they're listening. They're like, what? Like, oh, okay. Everything's terrible and we're really fat. Okay, got it. Everything, I'm going to feel terrible. So that's a simplification, but
Yeah.
I think you get
And
the
like, I'm going to
visual.
stay fat. It's where our body and everything that we're doing is seeking to reinforce our thoughts.
Right.
Now, my grandpa was a preacher, and I used to love asking him all these questions about things. He was a cool thinker. And I would say, well, like, is it wrong to, like, I have these crazy thoughts that come in my head sometimes. And he would say, well, like, it's okay that crazy thoughts come in your head. That's called being human. But like, don't let it be like a bird that makes a nest in your head. That's totally different than something flying by. So we're not talking about the flying by thoughts like, oh, wow, I should just go buy a new blender right now. I mean, that's just a weird random thought that doesn't mean anything, right? But I mean, it's like, if you're always looking in the mirror and going, wow, I'm really looking old. Wow, I'm old.
Right.
If I'm saying those things to myself, then my body is taking the orders. My brain is taking the orders. My emotion, my spirit is taking the orders, and it's seeking to reinforce what my belief is.
Exactly.
And so a lot of times with this tape thing, one of the best things we can do is habits can't be broken. They can only be replaced. And Linda does a great job. I'm not going to give you like the 2 steps you need to go do this today and like you're gonna like go conquer it. This is like a lifetime achievement award. Like, you'd need to do this the rest of your life. It's a discipline, okay? But what I will say is this: habits cannot be broken, they can only be replaced. And if you have a habitual inner critic, you're going to get the results of habitual inner criticism. Just the same way if you smoke, you're going to get the results of habitually smoking. And the key is to get into a different habit, to replace that with a better habit, with a better way of viewing things. And it's not, by the way, doing just positive thinking, like, even though you love yourself, you're like, or you hate yourself, you're like, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. That does not work.
No. In fact, it causes more stress. It causes more stress in the body.
Because our body and brain are going, no, you don't. Stop lying. We can't lie to ourselves,
Right.
our bodies, right? So there's this like conflict that's going on when you're trying to change that. And so first of all, we have to root out the junk and we have to erase that inner critic tape, and then we can replace it with something better.
Right. Absolutely. That's a very, very important step. So if this is making sense to you, we invite you to chew on it, like really look and notice. I'm going to say for the next 3 days, or whenever you listen to this, if you've listened this far, take the next 3 days and just be mindful of how you talk to yourself. How often there's like a berating comment or a put down or a should. Just even do that. How often do you use the word should? I should have done this. I should have got up earlier. I should have whatever. I should have. When you're shoulding yourself all the time, that's the message is, I didn't do it right. And there's a way that you feel inside about it. There's other ways to phrase it where you can acknowledge something different would take you further, would take you more to the mark that you want to get to, like getting to work on time. There's a different way to feel and think about it. But when you should yourself, that's an indication of a criticism. So we're just inviting you. I'm inviting you to, spend the next few days really noticing that. And if you have any practices of ever writing things down, write it down. What did I just say to myself? How did I feel when I said that? What did it stop me from doing? It stopped me from, being connected in my relationship. It stopped me from showing up socially. What did it stop me from doing? So Linda's saying, I gave up 50 years of smoking and have replaced it with eating, which is such a common sequence, I think, Linda. I'm sure that many, many people can relate to that. So we're talking about having the support and the strategies to create better habits, right? Because when we're doing things to make ourselves feel better, smoking and eating are both coping habits. They're coping mechanisms because we're not really okay with how we can handle something. So we look for something to comfort us. So we move from smoking to eating, or maybe we move from drinking to smoking, or, but we have whether it's the glass of wine or more than that, several nights a week, or it's the comfort foods. Maybe we buy things. I've been on the phone a lot with women who are like, they realize they go to the store and they buy stuff just to feel better in that moment. So we're not talking about replacing it with more coping mechanisms. We're talking about replacing it with things that actually move your life forward and give you tools to have more power in your life. Coping and strategizing through life is not the most powerful way to experience this life that you've got.
Absolutely. That's such a powerful insight. I feel like we could spend like an hour just thinking about that. I'd like to add just one other thing before we go to this was what really hit me, and it might be a different clarifying question you can ask yourself as you're looking at these statements you're saying about you. Would you say that? Would you judge someone else the same way you're judging you? So you all know the phrase "do unto others as you would do unto you would do unto yourself." I was really convicted one day that I needed to do to myself what I would do for others. So if I'm a compassionate, gracious person toward others, why am I not being a compassionate, gracious person toward myself? Because when I sat down and really looked at the things I was saying about myself in my inner dialogue, I realized I wouldn't say that about my worst enemy. I wouldn't be that hard on them. I wouldn't be that critical. And so recognizing that, and that's where a lot of to be totally honest, that's where a lot of my health and pain came from. It was this constant harsh criticism. And when I started shedding that and changing the way I viewed the world, through this hard work, wow, all of a sudden my health started improving.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be a link to that, right? But there was, because we are interconnected, whether we want to admit it or not.
Yeah. And I want to stack one other thing on what Libby just said, which is, if you're really honest and you have the ability and the desire to be self-reflective, like you're going to really honestly self-reflect, and what you notice is you judge yourself and you do judge other people. So if you notice a very judging voice in your head about your sister-in-law, about your kid's teacher, about the car line, about me, about your neighbor, you notice that you're judging all the time, everybody. And it takes a little bit to be like, oh, wow, I do that. When we're overly judging and critical, that's one way that someone who is stuck, if you've ever heard of the different like the different ways your nervous system can be stuck. So it's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Those are the 4 different ways, and that's a whole nother conversation. But the fight, if you're stuck in fight, that's someone who is walking around with a sword and shield, ready for a fight because their nervous system is there. That's the place where you live. And the judgment, that's a very common way that people in that place thoughts are going. It's a constant judgment of others and yourself. And it's not really fun to live with people like that. And it's not fun to live in yourself when that's you. So that's the fight response. And we'll talk about all of those another time. But because as Libby was talking, I was like, okay, yeah, there are people who judge themselves and are really gracious to other people, but there are also people who judge everyone, who are always complaining and always judging. And I'm not judging you right now for being that way. I'm asking you to be self-reflective and to think, why do I do that? Is that really how I want to be? And it is someone who is stuck in a particular nervous system response. That's one of the ways that it shows up. Yeah. So we're going to let you guys, that's a lot to chew on, right? You're noticing you're judging yourself and others. You're noticing your inner critic voice. You're noticing how much you say shoulds, and you're noticing the arenas that it's showing up in your life. Maybe it's all of them. Maybe it's more in some than others. And any comments you want to share with us would be great. We love your feedback. And anything else you want to say, Libby?
I think that's it. That we've given everyone a lot to think about. I think the only other thing I just want to say to you is I want to leave you with hope. If you are one of these people who is experiencing this, you don't have to stay stuck there. Linda and I are living proof you don't have to. And we want you to have a life of freedom and joy and purpose that does not involve feeling criticized constantly by yourself. And so, we'd love to talk with you. We'd love to help you if that's something that resonates with you.
Yeah. And there's 2 opportunities for that. If you want to just have a conversation with one of us, just put that in the comment. I want to talk, and we'll send you a link to the calendar. It's a free conversation and we can talk about that. And then at the end of the month, we're going to be running, you'll be seeing in this week and next week, you'll be seeing posts about it. We're going to do a little mini course together about creating freedom in your life. This is one piece of what we're talking about. But Libby and I are going to do, I always do a monthly workshop, and we thought this would be fun to do together this month. We're at the midway point of 2024. Do you guys realize that? June is halfway done. 2024 is just about halfway done. I feel like we were just saying Happy New Year. Yes. Every year I say that, it goes faster. So we wanted to get us into summer and the second half of 2024 in a different place. And that only happens when you decide to do something differently. So look for that little mini course that's going to be posting starting this week, or just get on a call with us. Just let us know in the comments and we will get you the link to the calendar. Sound good?
All right. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see y'all next week.
We'll see you next Monday. Take care.
Okay. Thank you.